Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Monday Musings, March 30th, 2026. Here is the opportunity for us to connect as I watch things connecting. Oh, Instagram. Just give me a second. Let's try this again. Sorry, YouTube. You guys are going to have to deal with this. All right. What's up, Instagram? All right, YouTube, Facebook, live. How are we all doing, everyone? Yeah, let's try that again. Let's just cancel. Let's cancel. Hello, Instagram. My name's Justin Harris. Welcome to Monday Musings, Facebook and YouTube as well. It's March 30th, 2026, I think, something like that, right? Monday Musings are my opportunity to talk about things that I'm seeing in my industry, in my own coaching, conversations I'm having with my athletes, things I'm experiencing in my own training or have experienced. So buckle up and let's get rocking and rolling. So I want to talk about the long game. So something I've been doing over the past month or so, I would say several months, honestly, is I've been trying to distill, my coaching philosophies, principles, values into kind of a bit more coherent and systematic way. I find that uh, when you have experienced a lot as an athlete and as a coach in different domains, right, you start seeing patterns, and maybe it's the ADHD in me or whatever. But there's an aspect where it becomes so obvious that there are patterns here, but clearly defining them is really a challenge for me. So I kind of came up with this framework of how to look at things like where clients struggle, where athletes succeed, who's the most successful, who runs their head into the wall over and over again, even though I'm trying to educate them and keep changing. And obviously it's not landing. So what I want to get into is this concept I'm calling the long game. And the long game, essentially, is like kind of a 7-step framework in a certain sense. What I might mean by this is like you exist somewhere on this 7 steps on this continuum, right? And you're not like dead set in one place. It's constantly moving. Even when we get to like the 7th step, like the best step that the one we're shooting for, something can happen and different things pop up and we kind of go back down. And it takes, to me, either extreme self-awareness or a coach that understands kind of these principles, really. And so I want to get in those today. Um, and right now I'm just kind of coining it the long game. All right. And so essentially what this is it's like it's moving from beliefs to behaviors to get to performance, right? You can't perform if you have bad behaviors, all right, and bad beliefs. All right. I didn't freeze. I'm just letting that be there. Okay. So these are really like kind of mindset shifts and then behavioral shifts. And I believe in the perception action feedback loop, which I learned in cognitive science, which essentially is that how you perceive the world influences how you act, and how you act influences how you perceive. Okay. So we need these mindset shifts to go to like to help shift training execution, and which ultimately leads to long-term development. And that's what I'm in this game for, is to see athletes improve year in and year out. And it's really you as the athlete, it's your journey. And I just get to be here with you along the process. And either you let me jump in the trench with you and helps you to stop digging yourself a deeper hole, and to help get us both out, because I always learn in the process. So with that said, let's get into it. All right. 7-step framework called the long game. And I'm just exploring this and workshopping it. So bear with me here. All right. Step 1. So it's the lowest step. It's the first step, right? We got to start somewhere. And I say, like, stop chasing the feeling. And the belief shift here is that fatigue is not proof of progress. Okay. I have a lot more written on these things. I'm not going to get into them too deeply, but step 1 is basically stop chasing the feeling. Okay. All right. And someone in that realm, like, you add training when you feel good, because easy days feel like wasted days. More always feels safer than enough. Okay. Step 2, and you can think about like where you're at in this framework. And I'm curious of your opinion. You can DM when you're watching this later. You can comment and I'll get back to it. But I'm going to go through all the steps. Step 2, commit to the process, not the outcome. The belief shift that needs to happen here is motivation is unreliable. Consistency is the only currency we care about. This is where I get into like chop wood, carry water. All right. And step 2 as an athlete looks like you train when you feel like it. So motivation runs the schedule. Good weeks and dead weeks, no in between. Either all in or I'm all out. All right. I would call this step number 2. All right. Step number 3 is as an athlete. Well, let me just say what it is. All right. Step number 3 is trust the sequence. Now, this is not a belief shift. This is a behavior shift. Stop rescuing missed days. Okay. You have to trust the sequence. And what this looks like as an athlete is you panic when you miss a session. Every missed day needs requeuing, restructuring. The plan is a checklist, not a system. I got to just check the boxes all week. All right, just to get it all in. All right, and I'm calling this a long game to get to performance. All right, step number 4, learn your dose. All right, this is behavior shift for people. A little bit better than the earlier stages is step 4 or 7. Train what you can absorb, not what impresses you. As an athlete, this looks like you're measuring your training against others. Their volume becomes your standard, your dose by comparison, not by capacity. So I'm looking at, hey, Sally runs 60 miles a week. I need to run 60 miles a week. You don't understand whether you absorb the dosage. You don't even give a shit, right? So you're measuring your training against others. And this happens a lot. I have tons of conversation around this. All right. Step 5. All right. Build the engine before you race it. All right. The behavior shift we need here is separate preparation from rehearsal. All right. Well, how am I going to run X pace in a marathon if I never do that pace? Well, we do that pace a lot, just in a lot of sneaky ways in my program. All right, well, it's my aerobic long run, my 20-mile long run. Well, I need to run pace. No, if you ran pace for 20 miles, you essentially you raced the marathon. It's not what we're supposed to do here. So as an athlete, this looks like easy days feel like wasted opportunities. You drift into tempo, that orange zone on the watch. Aerobic work feels like stalling, not building. All right. So step 5, we need to build the engine. All right. And aerobic running is part of that, and cycling and swimming for the endurance athlete. Step 6, manage load across all 3 systems. Performance shift. Now we're starting to shift into performance. Musculoskeletal load, metabolic load, mental load. All right. 3 ways we can load the body. If we can't do it running, we can do it cycling. If we can't do it cycling, we can do elliptical. If we can't do it elliptical, we can swim, or we can do it with weights or upper body. There's different ways that we can go about solving this. All right. Metabolically, we still get the load there. We can change what we're doing. All right. And then mental. Do I enjoy it? Do I not enjoy it? Do I need it? All right. Do I want it? These different things. As an athlete, what this looks like is you have random bad days you cannot explain. Okay. So fatigue seems to appear out of nowhere, and recovery is a reaction, not part of the plan. All right. If you're not managing this load, you're probably overdoing it somewhere. Probably. Not always, but probably. All right. In step 7, embrace the mastery. The performance shift that happens here is we become a thinking athlete. All right. And what this looks like as an athlete, you trust the process without needing proof. Feeling good is data, not a warning. Missed days are information, not failure. You're becoming a thinking athlete. That's the finish line. All right. I want my athletes to be able to understand when they need to back off in session or at the beginning of a session, when we need to call a day off just to call a day off, and because they trust the process. And I'm going to talk about this in my newsletter in 2 days on April 1st, Fool's Day, but it's not. I'm not trying to fool anyone. Is this idea that just understanding your body, right? Like I start with example of an athlete who didn't take off for 2 days or 2 years, not a single day off. And now they look forward to days off. And I always come across as like the guy who's telling you to do easier and lighter, but like that's just like the low hanging fruit, the return on investment, like highest return on investment, like the simple stuff, which is hard to execute, but it's the simple right answer. It's like we need to back off some places, because I deal with a lot of people who are jumping in and like overdosing themselves, with training. It's not really chronic overtraining. That's really hard to do, but it's just like some bad habits, all right, which come from bad beliefs. So at the end of the day, this is kind of like a play on, you know, um, creating a system, which I call the long game right now. I don't know that I'm going to stick with it, because there's a golf movie called The Long Game, and there's a book called The Long Game or whatever. But what I'm trying to do is have a system that people can, take basically a survey or questionnaire to figure out what step they're on. And these steps are dynamic. And, what are the pitfalls of it? What does it look like, diagnostically? And, how you kind of work through it a little bit and give you some bits. So I'm working on all these things to like build out my business a little bit more and in some different ways. But for me, it's like there's systems, and I hate having the same conversation over and over and over again, because it's like, for me, it's like I'm not finding a way to land the message, and I keep trying. So anyway, I'm curious what you guys' thoughts on kind of the steps here. And if you're just jumping on, I've created a framework of helping people move from uh, ultimately to performance, but basically beliefs to behaviors to performance. And when we get to performance, when you understand, and really embrace the mastery, and as an athlete, you trust the process, well, then we get injured. And then we kind of, how far do we slide down the steps, down the escalator? Do we end up at step 6, or do we end up at step 1? So there's this like reoccurring process of like self mastery. And so I'm curious to what you guys think about these different steps, which I'll repeat them quickly, which is stop chasing the feeling, commit to the process, not the outcome, trust the sequence, learn your dose, build the engine before you race it, manage load across all three systems, embrace the mastery. And so you'll have to watch this again, but comment if you're seeing this and whatnot, and we'll have a conversation. So right now, so again, my name is Justin Harris. I've coached speed and power athletes to ultra marathoners, beginners to Olympic medalists and Olympians, which is a pretty cool process. But I love working with everyday people who have full schedules. And so if that's you and you're curious, you can follow me. You can jump on my newsletter, which I send out twice a month, 1st and 15th, 5-minute read about the art of training. So make sure you sign up if you're watching this. And yeah, let's go. Got a little rosé Cab Franc from Domaine Lesour up in the Finger Lakes. Yum, yum, yum. So what's up, Marathon Graham? What's up, Mary? What's up, Claudia? What's up, Liz? What's up, Tracy? What's up, Callan? What's up, Kristen? What's up, Christy? So, Claudia, I'm definitely 3 and entering 4, but from injury into my new training, which we are learning, I feel like it's trusting the coach and the belief in the process created between the athlete and the coach. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's really hard to, have a big injury and then like come back without any little setbacks, because what that means is we're just going so slow that there's almost no opportunity for error. The other side of things is we go so fast and we just keep getting set back, and that's not good either. So it's an expected part of the process. But I'm curious to how you all look at your running here. And I'm curious about, again, you're not going to remember the stages. These aren't like the lessons or the 10 commandments or something, but um, I'm curious to the thoughts. So chasing the feeling is definitely a tough one. I'm pretty sure that's why I'm at where I am. I love that feeling of hard workout where you hit all the times. Yeah. But to me, like hard sessions are a privilege, not a right. Like you got to be able to like absorb and handle them, right? And so for me, I just come back to this, like watching Alexi Pappas, I think on Rich Roll, talking about her coach for the Olympics. And he basically said it was like the rule of threes. Like a third of your training's going to suck, a third's going to be meh, okay, and a third's going to be great, which really says 2/3 of it is not going to be great, right? So there's a lot of tough opportunities here to work through it and lean on. So like part of writing workouts as a coach is I want my athletes to be successful, but as I'll talk about in my newsletter, like I once I trust people and they trust me, like I push them. Like I want us to fail and miss splits, at times. It just takes us a while to get there. Like some of my clients, it takes like 3 years. Some clients it takes 6 months. Like, yep, got it. Cool. Yep, we're good. Yep, you trust this, right? Yep. All right. Beliefs are good. Behaviors are good. Yeah, we can move on to performance. But when the behaviors aren't good, I got to double check in on the beliefs. When the beliefs aren't good, they've been confirmed in a biased way to like, not help. That's the challenge. All right, Liz, meaning it has led to injury and has taken more out of me more than once. Still learning. Yeah. What's up, Roberto? Yeah. So that's the big thing I talk about in my newsletter. This one coming up, is basically like because some of us aren't patient and we're chasing something. As I say, is who's walking the dog, right? It's the dog walking you, or are we walking the dog? At the end of the day, this is the difference between playing finite games and infinite games. And if you haven't read Robert Carsey's book, Infinite or Finite and Infinite Games, Simon Sinek has one more recent based on that book, The Infinite Game, which is a little bit more related to, corporations and businesses and whatnot. But I think it's still a great message. And essentially is, a finite game is one where there's a beginning, middle, and end. And there's a winner and there's a loser, and it's often short term. Infinite game is the game that we just play to keep playing. So the difference is, a simple example would be like a, T-ball, or like a little league game, or a soccer game, basketball, whatever, like game. Like there's winners and losers, right? Like what's up, Nazreen? What's up, Karina? Double Karinas. Um, like there's a ref and everything, and we're playing to win, right? And I think parents have been getting this a little distorted for a while. The professionalization of youth sports is fucking insane. I don't look forward to it with my kids. But the infinite game is like the pickup game where, yes, there's winners and losers, like there can be, but there's also like, let's keep playing, or yeah, it was out, but like let's keep playing, right? Like, because we want to play the game, we want to enjoy it. And so what that relates to in our own training and lives, is like the finite game is like the battle, the infinite game is the war, right? Like, okay, maybe you won the battle, but you're losing the war because you end up on the sidelines and the med tent. And we end up spending a lot more money. I'm a Liz, this is not you by any means. But I'm amazed at, yeah, like when we get hurt and we spend money on PTs and chiros and all this stuff, which I utilize and I love them. We need them, right? But that's like when we've gone over the red line. Whoop, all right. And so let's just not redline it. Like we don't drive on the highway like we're in an F1 race car, but we kind of train like that because it's slower and it can happen more. So anyway, Claudia, I do find though that some, not all, but some athletes' beliefs can be reshaped by the outcome of a performance. It's the, wow, I did that when previously I believed I could not. Yes. Well, this is why I often say that, like, I really won't know an athlete until they race. Like that's when I fully see, like, are they talking, and talking the big talk, and then when race comes times they have a tough time? Are they under training and kind of cautious, but then they're a great racer? Um, how did they handle the pressure, the week going into the race? How much pressure did they put on themselves? Like there's a million things to talk about. And so the point being there is like, yeah, absolutely, a race can, change your mindset. And I have an athlete like that right now who's new to me and came a little late. And so we got a little short timeline to their key race. And it's different than what they've done. And they're just like, I just feel like I'm not going to believe it until I do it. And it's like, fine, great, you can. But like, if you don't believe it's going to work, like you're putting a lot on the line sometimes. So it's definitely a curious thing. And listen, I say all this, little caveat, like this is more my soapboxy stuff, right? Like there's nuance in here and it depends, right? I just cannot fucking stand people like, it depends, it depends, it depends. Like, I'll give you my opinion. Like, and I'm speaking for like most things I see, but it's not inclusive of everything, every single scenario. Not at all, right? Callan, on training days when you just don't have it, how do you know when to wrap it up and move to your next day session, or when to push through and complete the session? All right. What's up, Neil? Callan, this is a great question. All right. So when I coach myself, and if you're self-coached, I would say err on the side of caution, because you don't know what session is the landmine that you might step on and blow up. All right. So I would lend myself, and even when I'm coaching myself, like I'm a little bit more well versed in this, right? But like I'll just be like, yeah, I'll get after it, next time or whatever, right? Because it's not just how you feel in the session. It's really like how you feel 48 hours is the indicator of like if the session was too much. So if the next day you're shot and the day after you're just starting to feel better, then you really went over. Because there's times where I felt amazing, but then the next couple of days I felt like crap. And again, like with hard training, you're going to feel like crap sometimes, right? And it's fine. You need to do that. When I've been coached, the last time I was coached, like there was workouts and I was like, man, I don't know I'm fucking tired. Like, I think I would, if it was me, I would kind of bail on this workout. But to answer your question, I would start the session on the lower end of the ranges. And it blows my fucking mind when my athletes start at the fastest end of the range and blow up. And then like, that was hard. I don't understand. And it's like, yeah, because you knew you were tired going into it. So I start at the slower end and I might work my way through it. And I might not get to the middle of the range or the top of the range. I might just be at the bottom, but it's like I showed up. I did the workout in the way it was implied. I found some moments of challenges. Like, really, the workout is really the challenge is working through it mentally, like just showing up. And then I cool down and I make sure I do all the things I can, eat well, in a timely manner and sleep well. And, and then next day is it's never two workouts back to back. So I can really go slow or make the adjustments after the key session or the key workouts of the week and kind of use that to like let go of the sponge a lot more. Like, and so like if it was 90 minutes ride, the day after a workout, I might be like, hey, I'm just gonna start it. Like I might go 90, but like let me go 60. And what I found time and time again was I was able to make through the workout because my coach was looking at all the numbers. And it's normal to have some doubt. And I knew they would help calibrate it and I would fix it in the day after, I didn't take too big of a bite. Okay. So when you're self-coach, be careful of the landmines that are out there. But yeah, so I'm trying to like start at the lower end, work my way into it, be a little progressive, and just say, hey, let's not set the table for failure on the first rep. Let's work through it. But let's not make it harder than it's supposed to be. If it's threshold, I'm not fucking getting my heart rate into VO2 max land or effort. I'm not going to do that. And I know the recoveries need to be shorter, so I'm just gonna like try to find my rhythm. Maybe there's a cadence call, and I'm like, if I go to that cadence call, that like I'm doing the best I can. I can't follow that. I've done that before. You got to make some modifications. So in my coaching, I try to help explain to athletes over time, like what sessions they can, like work through a little bit more, which ones they have to like kind of stick with and deal with, and then how to modify it. I literally just had this conversation 30 minutes ago with one of my clients. Like they're like, I'm scared of VO2 max, like after a race. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of a little like, wake up, pitter patter, little kitty, wake you up. And they were concerned and they're like, yeah, I just didn't do it. And so I was like, yeah, well, and they asked, like, can I go slower? I'm like, yeah, just go slower. Work your way into it. See what's up. It's all good. All right, Liz, have you ever had an athlete take a couple years break from racing, running, workouts to sort of escape the cycle of training and overdoing it and return and see success? What's up, Morgan? Kitty cat after you, Callan. Yeah, a little pit pat, wake you up. Liz, this is a really good question. I'm just trying to scan back through athletes. I mean, if I'm honest, I took 10 years away from racing or training because I finished up racing triathlon and I just needed I'm gonna be honest, like kind of an ego like dissolve. Like, not that I was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was just like I was like 28, 26 when I stopped. And I kind of like hit my goal, like I was like there with my goal. And it was like, if I didn't achieve it, I was out. I didn't want to be 35 years old and like living on people's couches because for like 2 years in a row, 24, 25, 25, 26, I made like $15,000 a year. It was like, I was buying pancake mix with just only needed water. So it was tough. And so I made the decision, but yeah, I just dissolved, pulled away from it because I didn't want to like keep like getting back into it. And the other side of things, and I'm going to be, like honest here, is that I didn't want anyone who I like beat and crushed to like, oh, I kind of was training and then I went out and raced and they like beat me. I was just like, I'm going to go out like Michael Jordan should have locally and just like, whatever, like, you know. So it took me a little bit. My own athletes, I have a few people that I see are, having to pull away. Um, not just one, like multiples, it happens. And I would just say it's just how vulnerable can you be to kind of like try it a different way, right? Like maybe a little bit more guidance with someone who is going to give you what you need and not just what you want. And I think I think that's important. So yeah, I mean, we're capable of anything, you know, we're capable of anything. You can take 6 months off. I mean, last year that was it for me again. Like I was just like, yeah, I didn't really enjoy the racing, and I didn't want to do hard workouts. I feel like I've done a lot of them. Had a few little heart things that have been like weird and inconclusive, and so I was like, let me just enjoy riding and running and swimming on my terms. And I think that felt weird at first, but I enjoy it. I think for me, it comes down to confidence and like content. Like I'm content and satiated with my athletic career. I don't feel like I need to prove anything to anyone. And not just because I did well or ran fast or performed well. I mean, that definitely helps, but I think anyone can be there. What's up, Judy? Yeah, Karina, like I guess it's how you define success. Success, yeah. And in my questionnaire I asked, how do you define success? And mostly everyone, I don't know. It's a mixed bag. Like it's a very open-ended question. What's up, Justin? To see where people get with it, like I just leave it really open-ended and I come back to it. Usually 6 months, a year, 2 year, and I come back to it and it's like, look, this is how you define success. Like, do we need to redefine success to make it successful? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. Or like, no, it wasn't about their running and somehow it became about the running. So Karina, flex it on the fairway. Yeah, absolutely. It's completely how we define success. You can feel fulfilled without being the best you've ever been. Yeah. For me, I feel this way with like coding. Like it's so utterly rewarding and fulfilling when I figure out something in a spreadsheet or wrote up a little like SQL or database code or something and figured something out and made something work easier. Now with like vibe coding, like man, I'm like able to do all the things because I wasn't a good coder, and it's so utterly fulfilling. Like I literally built something for a month. I'm excited to kind of release as I beta test it. It kind of fills the gap between what all these training platforms and the watches. Everything's objective data, and it's more subjective data orientated. Let's just say it's where analog meets AI. And I'm super excited about it, but like even if I just use it with my own athletes, it's fulfilling enough, right? It doesn't have to be more than something else, but I suck at it. Like someone I have a friend who, some people are like, you're fine, you're good or whatever, but it's like it's not, it's fulfilling to me. So, Liz and everyone else, like I would say, yeah, like what's fulfilling to you? What's up, Tabitha? How you doing, Tabitha? I think to your definition of shifts as you grow. Yeah, yeah. It can. For some people, it doesn't. Maybe you figure it out earlier in life. I don't know. But I think success definitely looks different at different points of your life. For me, early on, like in high school, and success was like getting faster. But even then, it wasn't like I liked to PR. I felt good, but it was more about like beating other people or like really not giving up. That's like kind of my family's motto. We love to be the one to disappoint you when we don't fall down. That was my high school quote. A little Limp Biscuit action. But I love it because it's like, yeah, I wanted to prove people wrong. And then at some point, like I was fortunate. I had a bunch of people who believed in me on stuff, and I like freaked out. I was like, it was so much pressure. It's like I need someone to down me. So it burned dirty. It wasn't like holistic of a definition, right? But I still like And I didn't really like running. I did not like running. I didn't really identify as a runner until my 5th year, 4th year of college after an injury for a year. I was like, I'm a soccer player, reject one. I didn't make the teams. I'm a cyclist. Like I used to fly down mountains, jump off stairs, all kinds of crazy shit. Because my running friends, they just get so stressed about running. And it was like their whole identity. I knew I was more than that. But, the more I committed to it, like I remember sleeping in my apartment, like paying for rent on a credit card and like barely making by. And like I have this big race out in Texas for like a talent ID race. Like I got invited out and where they were scouting talent. And I finished third, but I remember like sitting there, like my Achilles was bothering me. I was making no money. I had no heat. It was like April race. It's just like this whole big thing and put a lot of pressure. And I was like, look, it's a big opportunity, but it's not who I am like all the time. Yeah, runners are crazy people. I think endurance athletes in general, ultra runners, like I remember like running with these ultra dudes in Hawaii and it was like, they're all recovering addicts of some sort. And it was really like I was like surprised by that. And they're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people like they're running away from their demons or whatever it is, right? But that's movement is medicine, right? It can be regulating and it's good. It's just like when it starts to become like your whole identity in anything, whatever it is, right? Like we're more complex than that. And I'm not being dismissive. Like it matters. It matters to be healthy and have something to strive for and whatever. But that to me is like the paradox of it all. And I think life is full of paradoxes. What's up, Judith? Craziest person here. I have a training question. Yeah, we're all crazy. How many people? I mean, I got made fun of so bad for running, and now it's like a cool thing again. Running a half in a few weeks, and my body feels crappy. Legs are feeling fatigued despite rest, pulling back. Thoughts? All right, I love these questions. So let's like get into it. So, like, how many days a week are you training, Judith? What's up? What's up, Andrew? How you doing, man? We'll be chatting in 2 days. Yeah, give me the lowdown. What do you think it is? How many days a week are you training? Do you have stressors outside of life that are eating up some of the bandwidth for recovery? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating properly? When I mean properly, like 3 meals a day, hydrating, like the normal basic stuff. 3 or 4 runs, 1 cross. Okay, cool. Yeah, me too, Andrew. Love getting to know new people. All right. But yeah, Judith, any stuff outside? The budget. Yeah, life budget affects training budget. What do you think it is, Judith? And I will walk through it. What's up, Sarah? And don't be shy, Judith. I think I'm running a little too hard too often, and I was sick 2 weeks ago, but I feel like I rushed to get the training in between workout kits. Okay. How old are your kids? How many kids do you got? What's work? How many hours a week? And I'm not like you don't have to answer any of these questions. Like this is a public forum, so it's okay. But the more I know, the more I can answer it to you. What's up? Get your big long run done for London, Sarah? Yeah, I'm really liking this rosé. All right, the fucking twins alone would probably do it to you at 9 years old. Are they boys? My dad's one of 14, and there were 6 kids under 6 at the end. So kid, my dad is an identical twin. Then there were fraternal twins, and then another kid. Working house for 4 days a week. Oh, you medicine people, you medical people. So do you not have a continuous schedule, or do you have a continuous schedule? All girls. Oh man, you're 12-year-old and 9. Yeah, it's starting to get fun. All right. I don't have kids, but I've coached kids and taught younger kids and all that. All same anesthesia and same anesthesia. We are twins. We extra crazy. Yeah, my wife's a nurse. All right, and she just got her master's in nursing. I coach a neurosurgeon and doctor, orthopedic surgeon. I coach a hepatobiliary surgeon. I've coached, multiple nurses, anesthesia nurses, different stuff like this. One was on here. My medical people. Uh, Okay, so first things first. If you don't have a set schedule, it's hard to find rhythm. All right, I'll say that. So I see that in my wife and my medical people. All right. Um, the worst thing you can do at this point is stuff training in because your body's sending a signal. Okay. And if you tell me what you do in medicine, I can make better analogies here um, to really make it land, and you don't have to, and that's okay. However, I'll just keep talking until I get information. So, the best thing you can do is get to the line feeling a little frisky. And so, you'd rather be a mile short than an inch over because an inch over is like when people are hobbling and banged up. And I see this all the time because there was some insecurity somewhere of like I need to do X in order to like make this work, and it becomes a fallacy at times. And so uh but insecurities pop up. All right. Oncology dietitian. All right, so maybe you have a little bit more set schedule. My wife did private practice oncology. She mixed chemo and delivered it and stuff, and that's where she wants to be as an MP, but it's going to be a little bit of road to get there. I'm so excited for her. Anyway, okay, so and yeah, oncology dietitian. That is, I know. I mean, I'm not trying to be dismissive of it in the past, but I know that's like so insanely pertinent these days. Um, my uncle passed away of glioblastoma, and uh, he was given 6 months to live, and he lived 2 years because they like went and found someone in Spain, nutritionist, something, and really like approached it differently, and he was all there for a while. So uh, appreciate you guys, dietitians and stuff. All right. So the thing is like, so think of training budget, okay, and the way we deal with training budget is essentially we have a set budget. All right. So if we have $1,000 to spend, what ends up happening is we want to make the quality session. So if you're running three or four times a week, like if you run 3 times, like 3 times can be quality. I'm gonna say quality, like more on the quality side, but they need to be spread out. Okay. And for a half marathon, like there's long run, threshold run, VO2 max run, weekly volume, and then strength is in a half. Like they're all kind of important, but it could be like really confusing. If I'm going to say one, I would say the long run and threshold are like fairly equal, and VO2 max is like less of a priority. And so if you don't have a lot of budget, you want to be spending the budget on threshold and um, the long run. The issue is if you're doing 4 days a week and a cross train, the cross train, well, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the cross train could be the easy, like the recovery day, and the fourth run should be aerobic, which is like Garmin green, the smartwatch green run, just staying the greens on. Everyone says it's slow, but that's all the prep. You're doing all the infrastructure stuff, mitochondria density, so both size and numbers, and capillary bed development. So we're creating infrastructure to bring the goodies to the muscles and create more power stations along the way. I know you know this stuff, right? So I would just tread lightly, pun intended. It's like just back off. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, so being sick, like most people come back sick 2 weeks ago, you probably got right back into training, is my guess. And you're overloading yourself because now it's 2 weeks out. You're like, I'm back in it, but your body your heart rate. I don't know if you pay attention to heart rate. I almost guarantee that your heart rate was up that first week back, but you were like excited to be back. And then this week, it probably, the second week feels heavier, and the third week's going to feel even heavier. So aerobic training is chicken noodle soup for the endurance soul. So if you're struggling, just go slower. So get the mileage in, you'll get more time on feet, but I bet you'll feel better. Okay. All right. So Go slower to get there. So you got to start thinking. It's like we have frequency of training, how many times a week we're training. That seems pretty set with your schedule. Then you have volume, how much volume are you doing? And then you have intensity. And those all multiply, the product of those equal density. So just for shits and gigs, if we train, 4 days a week and volume, let's just say it's a 3 and intensity is a 2. All right. So 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24. All right. But if we make the intensity more, so from a 2 to a 3, all right, 4 times 3, frequency times volume is, that's 12. Before it was 2, intensity was 2. So 2 times 12 is 24. But if we move that to a 3, 3 times 12 is 36. 24 to 36 is like 50% improvement or 50% increase in load. And the body doesn't like that. So pull down intensity, keep the volume there. That'll probably give you more confidence going into the race to run a little bit further. And you'll be more prepared to have the opportunity to perform. That's all racing is. And then you'll problem solve your way from the start line to the finish line. That's racing. Very hard to execute what I just said because people take a big confidence hit. But do you want to get there feeling like shit? Do you want to get there being tired? Do you want to get there with something popping up? Just don't think it's worth it. And so you can look at what you learn there and you can either find a coach or do a consultation with someone or something like that. And then you can kind of like see what's going on more explicitly. But you gave me a good information and I'm speaking pretty globally of what like I see with people, but Karina, yeah, I can test to this. Had a successful half after taking it very easy per JH's instructions after being sick. Yeah. Karina was part of our group coaching for the half. They just announced it. We're going to do a marathon group coaching and for a fall marathon. So we're excited about this. But yeah, I was constantly telling people like you're sick, like just work your way back to it. So when you're sick, depending on how sick you were and how many days, it's like, like I just like, even if you were sick 3 days, I just say that week's trash, right? Like, it's just like, whatever, like take off a little bit of movement. Hopefully you didn't force it and train sick. A little sinusy, that's okay. Once you start coughing, it starts hacking up loogies and it's getting here. You do not fucking train. It does no benefit. Then the next week I ease people into like, no, I need to get back to it. No. Your body, like for a normal human going to work and stuff, you still even get tired by the end of the day, but you're like, I'm okay. But as an athlete, if you pay attention to your heart rate at all, you'll see that for what pace you're doing, that heart rate is way up there. And so I just pull people back. We get the frequency back going. Then the second week back, like I increase some volume. And then the third week, I add the intensity. And it's all happening at the same time, but this is one-on-one coaching. So we can do this. But yeah, it takes like 3 weeks to get back from being sick. So take your time. It'll be okay. You guys are asking great questions. So I know I say this all the time, but I don't know. I'm always surprised and amazed. I appreciate you guys showing up. I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate the vulnerability. And I love working out my ideas out loud. As my wife says, you try ideas on for size. And it's like, that's my job. I'm trying to make things land for people. So I'm curious what other questions pop up for you all. And if you're just jumping on, today I talked about this concept I'm calling the long game, a 7-step framework for endurance athletes, no matter what the sport. And it kind of takes people like, you can be at step 1 or 7 or in between. And I'm working on like this diagnostic tool that on my website that you can kind of take a test, see where you're at. And then it automatically gives you an email of a free PDF of explaining like that step and where you're at and kind of what the step is previous to it and what the next step is, and whatnot. And so I'm excited about that because I'm just trying to find ways to get everything into like kind of more of all my coaching philosophies and principles more into a little bit more into a system. There's a system, but it's hard for people to see. So I'm trying to help create a little less friction for onboarding, a little less friction early on in the process, but not all the friction is going to go away because a lot of, I would say 50% of my clients that are new have bad beliefs and some really bad behaviors. So we have to kind of work our way through that. Okay, I keep hearing critical velocity pace. What exactly is that? Yeah, well, yeah, critical pace, CP. I have looked into that a few times, and I'm going to be honest, I need to understand it a little bit more. I find that people are using critical pace like essentially it's like like to me it seems like it's not too far off of like what goal pace is. Um So I don't have a good answer. Eventually, when we end up, if we end up working together, Sarah, and then maybe I'll talk about it a little bit more or do a newsletter on it. But I remember digging into it. Like critical power was big first, and then it became critical pace for running. And so I don't have a great answer. What's up, Ben? Essentially, it's like it's the. I'm going to use the word isn't a definition, but it's the critical velocity or pace necessary for the event you're doing. Is my understanding. Which then just means your goal pace or velocity. And then how do you go about doing it? But I know they use more complicated calculations and stuff. So, um, but essentially, it's a way like, like a lot of the stuff we use is based on like threshold, you know, and so it's like a percentage of threshold, for like a marathon, it's like 89 to like 92% of your threshold pace. But some people are different. They're more marathoners, so they can run higher towards their threshold. For some others, they're more speedy ones in the 5K. So I need to like make it even lower, like 85 to 90% of their threshold. So actually, I'll hang out for a little bit more to ask questions, but critical pace, not critical race theory. We're not talking about that here. Critical pace definition. Runners World CV. So they are critical velocity pace. All right. Ask questions. Any questions you have while I'm reading this? What is actual CV? This is roughly equivalent to half-hour race pace. Some elite runners and coaches casually, 10K pace. Okay, based on the 30-minute. Most runners can't run a half hour. There's a couple ways to find it. Cooper test. Oh, so I guess this is better at. I guess critical velocity pace is like. So when you do, so it's actually close, and I'll read on it more. But hmm, essentially, what ends up happening is if you're more of a 5K or faster runner, excuse me. I rode 2.5 hours today. I'm tired. It was nice out. It's like 75 degrees. I think I got a little sunburn. But essentially, it's like if I know this, I'll just explain it in the one I really know it. But like when you take a FTP test, it's 20 minutes all out. And you set your zones on a percentage of that. And what ends up happening is if someone's more of like a grand tour rider or like they're really good at 6 hour races and big climbs and long efforts and stuff like that, 20 minutes is like a sprint for them. And so it's hard to maximize like high power output for that. Whereas like someone like a tour sprinter who can last 5 hours on flatter stage can really put out a lot of power. In 20 minutes, they could do some damage. They can hit a really high number. And so when they give the same percentages for both those athletes, when the long distance athlete is doing shorter intervals, it's not hard enough for them, and vice versa. When a sprinter does longer intervals, it's like way too hard for them. So I guess critical power and critical pace is just another way to like kind of define that. But like good coaches, experienced coaches, like you kind of like trying to build a profile for an athlete and see where they're at and see where the power or pace is at compared to where their heart rate's at. And people can get super technical, but it's not always necessary. So it's not goal pace. So I take that back, but it's something to help between threshold and shorter races. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just, we've done things without it a long time, and this might be better. And it's like muscle fiber type, blah, blah, blah. How can you incorporate signature? Around 3 minutes, the reps would be. Yeah, maybe this is actually interesting because I do VO2 max work, so like 5K race pace and faster. I do even fast like like neuromuscular work that's even faster, and I do that on the bike. And then I do threshold stuff, which is like a little faster than half marathon pace, but it's not quite 10K pace, like threshold intervals. And then I do like steady state or tempo runs, which is like around marathon pace, and then we run aerobic. I don't really hit 10K pace, so maybe that's it. Anyway, all right, Neil. I've had an injury challenge, knee and now mid Achilles. I'm working with a PT, but not a coach. Half marathons are my focus. How should athletes consider combining working with a PT and a running coach? Yeah, this is yeah, collaboration the best you can, but not all coaches will be open to working with a PT. Most will. I would say, and most PTs will be willing to like talk to a coach or at least send them an email. However, it's really your job, like if you're considering the two. So for me, what I do is like, hey, just let the PT know like I'm willing to talk to them. But basically it's like ask them what the diagnosis is, ask them where the weaknesses are, ask them like what their game plan is and send it to me. And I've done this long enough where I can look at that and it makes more sense to me. I'm not a physical therapist. I don't do physical assessments and I coach athletes remote. So like I'm going to miss something sometimes, right? I'm fortunate to, knock on wood, like there's not, I have injuries with my athletes. I've injured athletes, but we keep it, a little less. What's up, Rebecca? We keep it a little. I keep it a little conservative. Anyway, once a good coach, I say I know and good coaches, but it's kind of like I'm not trying to pound myself on the back that I'm a good coach. I just think of like what makes a good coach is someone who can take what the PT is saying, and then the PT should be blending into like the coach, and the coach should be like then taking that and not slamming back into things, right? And so one of the things is like, I'm curious if like there's a lot of things with knees and Achilles, right? Like, how hard are you running? Are you running hard often? Is your body ready to handle running? Like, should you be incorporating more cross training modalities like biking or elliptical? Um, this is what everyone, and I'm not being trying to be offensive here, but if we're carrying an extra 20 pounds, like that's going to put more on our bodies and make things harder on knees and Achilles type areas. Um, so it's a holistic thing generally, right? And yeah, so it's like one of those things. What's up, CJ? Um, so yeah, Monday Musings here. We're talking and answering questions, training questions for people. And I go on my soapbox early on, so you'll have to catch that later. But yeah, I would just say, like make them work in combo. Like more information is better. They should be integrated and the best you can. They're not going to call each other and like talk every week. It's your job to like, hey, PT said this. Hey, things are going well. But for me, it's like PT first. When you're cleared to, I don't know if you're running only or biking or whatever. Once you're cleared to do your sport, you can't slam into the sport like nothing happened. You have to ease your in. So the coach needs to like work their way in slowly. So if you think you're going to be back in 2 weeks, I'm going to be honest, like for most people, like think 2 months and you'll be back sooner than that. But like in 2 months, you'll like, instead of squeezing the accordion, like I want it all done here. And PT said, it's like, pull the accordion and open up the aperture and just like take your time and do it right because you don't want to end back up in PT and have the recurrent issue. So I would think about your training budget. It sounds like if you're getting those things, yes, it could be shoes, being in the wrong shoes. It could be like some biomechanics, but I've solved the problem with like reducing training load, reducing your budget for the week, and using cross training. So instead of loading up musculoskeletally that pillar, loading the body, we can load it up metabolically by switching modalities from running the most strenuous on your musculoskeletal system to the bike or elliptical. And so that'll take off some pounding. Hey, Drew, how you doing? So yeah, integrate them. It's your job to integrate the information to them. Sometimes a coach, I'm going to be honest, I feel these insecurities sometimes, like people are paying me and I'm like, I can't give you everything I got because we need to make sure you're healthy. And so just take time. And so some of my athletes on here have seen that, like, we're going to take our time. And because you don't really want setbacks, and especially on Achilles stuff and knee, depending on what's wrong with the knee. But tendons heal slower than muscles because they have low blood flow. And because they have low blood flow, they get less of the goodies to fix them and repair them. So you can, like you have a little setback with a muscle injury and it might be a week. You have a setback with a tendon issue, it could be 3 weeks to get back to the same place because it just takes a while and depends on how bad. So be patient. What percent of your clients have staying healthy as their primary goal versus performance? I think everyone has the goal to, like, both of those are their goal, as they say. I think if I were to, based on their behaviors and beliefs, I would say having a primary goal is performance orientated, 95% of them. When it really comes down to it, they're like, I want to perform. Because if they're not performing, but I'm keeping them healthy, like they're not, I don't think they're going to pay me and keep me around. So this is why I say how I coach is there's a performance circle and there's a health circle. And the performance circle, high performance in anything is not healthy. What's up, Katie? What's up, Dennis? Like think investing, lawyer, doctor, even high-end art and fashion and athletics and whatever it is. It's not healthy generally. High performance in anything is really not healthy. However, really healthy doesn't also mean performance, right? Like you putting your Skechers on, your shape ups and heading out for walking, like we're not there yet. I coach a guy who's 71. He's still out there doing stuff and still evolving and learning. And he's like, you've totally changed how I approach things. He's like, I wish I found you when I was 40. It's like, thanks, Raj. Appreciate it. But we're here now. And I learned so much from him. However, what I believe in is if I keep an athlete healthy, then they're able to be consistent. If they can be consistent, they can grow. If they grow and learn, they can gain confidence. And when they gain confidence and they're healthy, they have the opportunity to perform. So I get this a lot, like people like just because of some of my coaching background and my own athletic background, like, oh, I'm not fast. Like I had a lady do 8.5 hours for New York City Marathon. She walked jogger. That's okay. That was a huge accomplishment for her. It was amazing. Changed her life. She's now down to 130 pounds and she went sub 6 hours in the fall for a marathon. Unreal. It's like 153% improvement or something. Like it's insane. She wants to perform. It's not just health. So I think these things are really, for most people in their head, it's integrated, but I think their heart pushes them more towards performance. But when I was trying to be coaching at the Olympics, being an Olympian myself and coaching the Olympics, I didn't get close on the being an Olympian myself, but I got pretty damn close for coaching at the Olympics. I got as close as I could. and didn't end up doing it. But being around that atmosphere, what USA bobsled, skeleton, luge, um, really being on, like, watching things from afar from, some of the other sports like USA biathlon, and knowing some of the athletes and different stuff, and doing some bike rides with them and stuff. It was cool to see. But that high performance world was like really exciting, but I realized, like, for my own life, like, it meant I was going to be away from home like 8 months out of the year. And I just, my family is too important to me. And it's not, it sounds glamorous, but it's really not. And all these things. So to me, it also felt like the Olympics are some of my favorite things, but you see how much money is spent on them. Um, is it really helping? Like, like, winters are getting worse, but we're flying all over the place. Like, there's so many contradictions, and it's okay. Like, I can live in that. Like, it's not awful, but there's so many things in there where I was just like, this feels like it's real life and real stories. Like, watching Alana Miles Taylor win gold. Like, she's got bronze as a pusher, she's got a couple silvers as a driver, and then she won gold. And, like, she's got special needs children who are deaf, and just seeing her, like, win gold. And, like, I never coached Alana. Like, I was around, I asked her questions about stuff. We looked at some of her things, but, like, I didn't really impact her anything. Like, would never claim that by any means. But seeing that was amazing. But seeing so many people who didn't make it, and depressed, and all these things, I was just like, man, like, it really made me come back. Like, I went to coach in Division 3, and it's just like, hey, like, this is more about helping people be successful for life. So yeah, I feel like they go hand in hand. So as a client, I look to be a confident runner. Yes. Well, we're chipping away at that. You're doing good to do it in a healthy way. Yes. Yes, Claudia. Claudia's a great example of, like, being vulnerable and working through these things, which I super appreciate. So, um, yeah, any last questions? We've been on here for an hour. Appreciate you guys. It's all good stuff. Love it. Facebook, Instagram, don't hesitate to reach out or DM or comment or message. So I'm curious any races are coming up, what we're excited about. Any questions about me? About stuff you're curious about? Curious. But performance and health, to me, it's like where performance overlaps with health. It's like the intersection of performance health. That's where I have really focused. So I won't do something for performance gains at the expense of health. I won't do things for short-term gains at the expense of long-term improvement and gains. So yeah. Anyway, Neil, appreciate the questions. Claudia, appreciate stuff. Off topic. Have you taken the electric Savella road bike for a spin? I have not. I hear it's really awesome. Some of the guys have. I've ridden e-bikes, like hybrids, and mountain bikes are like my favorite thing in the world. Like, it just feels like being a kid, super fit, the most fit I've ever been. That's what it feels like. I can ride so fucking fast. And everyone says, like, oh, e-bikes are cheating. Like, I've never been more exhausted than when I ride an e-bike. Like, I'm just like, it's making me go so fast, and I'm pushing it. So it's yeah, it's fucking, they're so much fun. And I'm all for inclusivity. Like, I've seen people, like, have their significant other who doesn't ride, like, get an e-bike or rent an e-bike, and they can go ride on vacation. I've seen elderly people, like older people, like, still want to ride and ride. I saw a guy today. He was in a wheelchair, and he had this assisted thing, and he had a hand wheel, and it was definitely like like he was just going slow, and he was going pretty quick. And I was like, this has to be. And he was out there, and he gave me the thumbs up. I gave him the thumbs up on the rail trail. So it's awesome to see. Katie, trying to maintain fitness before Chicago without overdoing it. Spend a lot of time on the bike, but it definitely does not feel like it's translating into my running legs. What's up, Mr. Sean Turner? Uh, okay. So Chicago marathon training. What's up, Amy? Chicago marathon training starts like June 22nd, something like that. That's 16 weeks out. So Yeah, you got plenty of time to explore and play around with things. Like I would, for my athletes, like we'll cycle up and we'll work on an area of growth while keeping a strength. So for some clients, they're more marathon oriented. It's like, hey, let's do some VO2 max stuff and maybe race a 5K without overdoing it. Let's not worry about volume, but we can't get too far away from like a long run. So I keep them at 10 miles, something like that, whatever. Some of my other clients are more 5K orientated. So we're going to do a block of higher volume. So like more like up the frequency a little bit, up the volume and reduce the intensity. So I might do a VO2 max with them, maybe not every week. Right. And so I play around with this. Now, with regards to plan on using Team Loper's plans like I did for New York City. Okay. Yeah. So, um, So essentially the bike, it's not exactly the same. It's not one to one, but for me, it's like you just don't have the musculoskeletal load. So you're not going to feel the sensation of like your legs being as fatigued. But the thing is it's only your basically your quads. I mean, it's your calves a little bit of hamstring, a little bit of glute, but it's really your quads that are like if you see elite cyclists, they don't have giant asses. Like they have giant quads, like compared to their body. So for a runner, like to feel that in your quads, you're like, shit, my quads are screaming, but your heart rate's not so high. Well, when we run, our whole body is activated. And so the heart has to pump fresh oxygen all over the place. So it's a little bit more elevated. For the bike, it's just your legs and really mostly your quads and calves. So what ends up happening, it has a reduced load. So your heart rate won't be as high. So a heart rate on the bike from running to biking is it's probably about 10, 15 BPM less for most people on the bike. Okay. So you're doing similar work. All right. That's fine. And so if you have like impact issues, like I would still do intensity on the bike. Like, if I'm cross training, like I might not do VO2 max on the bike or on the run, I might do it on the bike. And then I'll do all my aerobic running. And then my threshold I'll do on the bike and long I'll do running. Like I'll mix things up. Now, I'm someone who in high school and all the way through college, I ran cross country indoor outdoor and I used my road bike to bike a lot of miles in the summer and run a little bit. And what that meant was I would come into the season and the fitness, the breathing was there, but the legs weren't quite efficient at running. And I would say it's more of an efficiency thing. It's a neural firing, right? Biking is different than running. The timing's different, the cadence is different, the force is different. There's so many things that are subtly different. And so I would say it's an efficiency thing. What I noticed is when I was in really good bike shape, it took me about a month to convert to run fitness. And I didn't just like go like all cycling and then all running. Like I just kind of, dimmer switched, slid the dimmer switch towards running and just ran a little bit more. And then I was all running and I was fine. And it took me about a month. So yeah, I mean, you could go into, as long as you're running a couple days a week, like I would say your aerobic run, 2 aerobic runs and a long. I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, it's not a one for one comparison, but like coaching triathletes, like sometimes I'll use the bike to gain a lot of fitness and then run a little bit to like just keep it there, and it transfers over enough if you have a coach who knows what they're doing. Okay, so yeah, the Team Whoppers plans are pretty solid. What's up, Marianne? Yeah, I'll hang out for. I mean, if you guys are asking questions, I'll answer them for another 5 minutes, 7 minutes. I'll go to 9:20 my time if you guys want. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up. So, Katie, you can ask more like I don't know if I answered that question. I think I did. Cycling is going to feel harder in the legs, but easier on the breathing and heart rate because your heart only has to power your legs really. And so that's a common misconception people get. I'm not working hard enough or whatever it is. And the other side of things is if you're in good bike shape, to convert that to if you're in decent run shape into good run shape, it takes about a month. And it doesn't mean that you need to be in great running shape to start the Chicago plan. And I think our plans are more 20 weeks. So that's probably more like beginning of June. But I would use this time to, get aerobic fitness. You just did a 14 mile last week, but wasn't sure if that's okay. Oh yeah, 14. You're fine. I forget. I didn't write the team uppers plans, so I don't know. I forget what it goes up to, but I kept my athletes at 20. We do 120, maybe two 16s, 118. Like we don't do a lot of volume, and I get results. Until I don't get results, I'm not going to change it. Losing fitness. Yeah, you're not running 14 miles. You're not losing fitness. Nope. I would focus more on aerobic efficiency right now in this time, which is frequency of training. So if you train 5 days a week, can you get a 6 day with a full day off 7? And maybe that's like 2 bikes and 4 runs. And 14, I would not go over 14 pre Chicago build. There's no need for that. And then I would think about what's your strength as a runner, as an athlete. Are you more of like marathon and longer, like you can go, but you don't really have speed in the wheels? Or are you like speedy and the marathon is like, your 5K PR is higher VO2 max than your marathon? So these are all questions that, the coaches at Team Opers do and I do, is like we try to figure this out. So, and then like, are we starting to stagnate, right? A little bit, like we're not improving as much, and not that we can keep improving by big jumps, but what do we need to, how do we shift the stimulus around? So yeah, at this time for my athletes, 14 is plenty. But you can mix it up. You can do a flat 14, so you run a little bit faster. And then you can do a hilly 13, 12, 13. You don't have to run 14 every weekend either. I would say 10 to 14 is plenty. Because like you have 20 weeks. I mean, I do 16 weeks and I start the first long run at like 9 miles. Even for like my people who are, pretty experienced. You know, Matt, when he ran his PR, I don't know if we ran 20 miles. That build. I think we only ran 18. Forget. I've had quite a few people PR and not run further than 18. This all depends. My marathon pace seems so difficult now. Trying to alter long runs on weekends, 10 to 14 miles. Yeah, I'd mix them up, but like the marathon is 100% aerobic, and it's really about aerobic efficiency. Aerobic efficiency is built on slower running. When they do research and look at marathoners and like longitudinal and big studies and blah blah blah, like Strava did like what's the difference between a Boston qualifier and not? And it's like Boston qualifiers, like the average Boston qualifier took like 5 to 6 tries at it. But Boston Marathon qualifiers tended to run more volume, and more of that volume was easier running than the other people. So it's just a volume thing. So if you're not good doing it running, like use the bike for sure. I mean, I trained a lady, as a triathlete, and we biked a ton, and she went from her first marathon was New York at 3:57, and then her second one was 3:43, and then she went 3:37. And that 3:37, she would have went 3:35 or faster, but she got the stomach bug bad on Tuesday of the week of the race. But anyway, we used bike. Like one weekend we'd bike 4 hours and outside, and then Sunday we'd run 10 miles, shorter. And then the following weekend we would run, 14 to 16 miles, something like that, 12 to 16. And then the Sunday we would ride an hour, so there's different ways to load the body. My runs have been slower than ever, but longer, and my speed was still there. Yeah. Again, there's a point, like there's stimulus and adaptation. So like sometimes the infrastructure to build faster running is built on slower running. This is why like everyone talks about zone 2. It's also why people get a bad rap. Zone 2 gets a bad rap because it fucking sucks. It's annoying. What's up, Rye? Rye was one of my athletes that I worked with in college. How you doing, bud? Um, Thanks for joining. So, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So essentially, being aerobically efficient means like you have a lot of mitochondria density and you have a lot of capillary bed development. And where is that built by? That's built primarily by aerobic running. Now, HIIT training can make more mitochondria, but it doesn't really deepen capillary bed development. So you kind of get one of the two. And by running slower, I get so many objections. It feels worse. It hurts more. And it's like, well, you got to change your cadence, right? And it's like a sliding spectrum. Anyway, I won't get into too much, but essentially what ends up happening is like that slower running, and it takes like 18 months. Just like running slower on your easy days. What that does is it gives you it running easier gives you more bandwidth to punch up the faster stuff. So, and I track this using a heart rate test, a submax test, and I will track this in my athletes, particularly in a marathon build or any race plan. In between race builds, I don't use it as much. I think I might use it a little bit more moving forward. But we look, are you getting more aerobically efficient at the same heart rate? Or are you going faster or slower? And if we're training more and it gets slower, that means it's fatigue, and so I can correct. So there's a million things here. And so static training plans are good to have some structure. And there's more levels to this thing. So, all right, man, how you been? These are my Monday musings where I get on and I rant about something or teach something or work through a concept I'm working on, and then I answer questions.